Welcome back to another installment of our City of Jackson, Tennessee Government Women in Leadership series. I'm 2020 City of Jackson, Tennessee Mayor's Youth Council Vice President Jasmine Cintron. We continue our spotlight on these remarkable women by getting to know more about Jackson Animal Care Center Director Whitney Owen, who was appointed director in April of 2020. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you again for watching. Hello, I'm Jasmine. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, dear.
And today I'll be interviewing you on some questions on what's it like to be a woman in leadership in your field.
Okay.
So the first question I'm going to start out with is, what's it like to be a woman in leadership in your field?
The ratio of men to women in animal control and animal welfare is vastly different depending on which area you approach it from. In animal control, it can tend to be a male-dominated field, and as a woman in authority in the public eye, it can be a little bit daunting for some people when you show up as a female and you are the one in charge of the situation, and you are responsible for enforcing your area's laws, ordinances, things like that. The respect level can be a little lower. Generally is a little lower if you're a woman as opposed to a man, especially if you are dealing with a violator or a individual who is male. The respect level tends to be a little lower, so you have to kind of learn how to approach that and how to handle that in a professional way without getting upset about it. Animal welfare, on the other hand, animal rescue, things like that, tends to be a strongly female-dominated arena, and so you've got a lot more support on that side of it. It tends to be a lot more supportive, a lot more open-ended as far as who they're accepting of, things like that.
Could you share an example of a hurdle or obstacle you experienced by being a woman in your field and how you overcame it?
Kind of the same situation. If you're dealing with people who are not respectful of your area's ordinances and you're there in a law enforcement capacity, being female tends to put you behind the eight ball as far as the enforcement capacity goes, because they don't tend to respect your authority in that situation. And so you do have to develop a little more of the no-nonsense authoritarian attitude to get the level of respect that is required to accomplish your job. Statistically, nationwide, animal abuse and neglect is linked to other far more serious crimes like child abuse, spousal abuse, gun crimes, weapons crimes, drug charges, things like that. And so the people that you're dealing with in those situations are not the cream of the crop of society. And so they already generally have a little more dim view of female authority than your average Joe. So you do have to approach them in a little more aggressive manner. And over the years, you develop that. That's your default setting. And so you fall back to that when you put in that situation.
Do you feel that your career shaped your understanding of life or the world?
Oh, absolutely. I entered this field when I was 22. I was idealistic and very, very sunshiny about the whole thing. I thought I was going to come in and help change the world. And then you realize that you may not ever change the world, but you can change individuals. You can reach out and touch certain situations in a positive way. And it took me a lot of years to realize that. This is a very emotionally draining field. Animal welfare, we have one of the highest suicide rates in the country as far as professions go. We top everything except, I think, it's law enforcement and the military, because it is very emotionally draining. It's very daunting. It can be very dark a lot of times, and so you have to learn how to distance yourself emotionally. You have to learn how to take the wins with the losses and try to focus on the wins, because there's not very many of them, but they all matter. And so it has definitely enabled me to be more of a positive person, more of a, hey, we're going to do what we can with what we've got where we are and start from there and just spread it out as much as possible. And it has definitely enabled me to approach individuals with a lot higher level of compassion than I would have prior to this. When you're young, everything's black and white. I know the answer to this, I know the solution for that. And in a field like this, where everything is touched and colored by gray, people may be in violation of this and they may have committed this act or whatever, but it's because of extenuating circumstances over here. And so you have to learn how to approach people with an open mind and being willing to work with them and discuss situations with them, and maybe not reach the optimal conclusion to the situation, but you have educated somebody, you've improved the life of the animal while you were there. You've improved depending on the situation, you've improved the neighborhood, you've improved the community at large, you've started a new program that's going to, spread across the community and improve things. So you have to learn to approach it from a more optimistic standpoint as opposed to focusing on the negatives, because there's always going to be negatives. This is a battle we cannot win. We're just holding back the tide. And you have to be willing to show up for work every day, willing to do the work, and to keep pushing that tide back without worrying about what's getting past you, because it's always going to be something. You can't win them all. You can't save them all. And you can't focus on that. So it definitely, the people that last in this field are the ones that are willing to approach it from well, what good are we going to do today? Instead of, well, what did we mess up on, or what did we miss? And so it forces you to have a little more optimistic approach to life.
Mm-hmm. Are there any assumptions of women you'd like to change, and why?
Oh, that list is very long. Obviously stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason in certain situations. And women we do tend to be a little more emotional than men are in certain situations. I think in my field that works to our advantage. Our compassion levels tend to be a little higher. Our ability to identify with the individuals, our empathy level tends to be a little higher. It makes it easier and harder in a lot of ways in our field. But just across the board in general, I would love for people to realize that just because you're more emotional or more emotionally invested in a situation doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you inadequate. It doesn't make you a bad fit for the position. It just means you care. And I would love for people to see that as a positive thing in a lot of situations. We are seen as less authoritarian, which is funny to me, because in the home, as a general rule, everybody expects us to be, the homemakers and the ones that raise children and the one that teach children and everything else. But then you get out in the public eye and all of a sudden you don't know anything about anything when it comes to being an authority figure, which is insane to me. But I would very much like that to change, because I work with some amazing women. I work with just amazing people in general, but since we're speaking of women, I work with some amazing women that have been in this field for years and are wonderful at it. One of our animal control officers is female. Our assistant director here at the shelter is female, and both of them are magnificent at what they do. And the things that people would necessarily say are weaknesses in women are what make them great at their jobs. They are more observant in certain situations. They are more compassionate in situations. They are more, they give the impression that they care more, which in a situation that has a high emotional value for the community is important, because people feel heard, people feel valued, and people feel like their problems or their concerns or their issue is important, and it's going to be handled and taken care of and approached in a compassionate, empathetic way, which is massively important in this field and for the success of our program in the community.
Is there any female figure that inspired you or impacted your life?
My high school Latin teacher, Miss Pedersen, she taught at JCM, and if you had asked anybody that took your class, they will tell you that she is just the sweetest little cream puff of a woman you've ever met. She was 5'0", short hair, real pale, always wore the bright, fun makeup colors, and real soft-spoken. Never heard her raise her voice at anybody. But she snatched life up by the horns, and I loved it. I'd never traveled. I've never been anywhere, really, never seen the world. I read a lot. I'm a bookworm. And so in my imagination, I had been everywhere, but in real life, I had never been outside of, our little area. And she's our Latin teacher. And the upside of being our Latin teacher, I guess, was she was just obsessed with Roman and ancient civilizations. And so she'd been to Italy and Rome and all over Europe, and she traveled and she'd seen things. And she helped me make the connection that the past influences us today, obviously. And so I became kind of a history nerd at that point, because the Roman Empire still affects worldwide governments and armies and military strategies and everything today, 2,000 years later. And so the way that she approached life and the way that she absorbed every detail of it, because like she would go to visit Rome and she would tell us stories about everything from the flavor of the creamer in her coffee at the corner, like coffee shop in Rome. She told us everything from that to describing the Colosseum in detail, down to scale figures that she had drawn on napkins and whatever while she was there. And it just, her complete obsession with the mystery of life was a big part of who I became as an adult. Like I want to see things, and I want to know people, and I want to learn from other people that have different experiences than I do. And I want to see things that people in my area may not have seen and bring it back here and share that information with people in this area. It just really, really changed me from this small town, naive, never been anywhere, never seen anything girl to who I am today, which we're not going to describe that because I'm weird and we don't know. But it definitely opened my eyes and made me a more accepting human being. It made me a more adventurous human being. It made me a more curious human being. Like I want to go and learn and see and do. And before that, I never really thought it was an option. I thought it was possible until somebody looked at me and goes, "Yes, you can." And she was the first person to ever done that. And it was really cool.
What is a message you have to all young women wanting to enter your field?
Oh, it's gonna hurt. If you come into this field, you need to do it because you care, not because you want to make money, not because you think it's like Animal Cops on TV, or anything like that. It is absolutely a compassion-based field, but it is also an enforcement-based field as well. Like you are here to, number one, protect the human element of your community, because aggressive dogs, sick dogs, things like that pose a threat to those individuals. The second tier on that is you are here to protect the animals in your community. And it is hard, and you will not make it if you're here for a paycheck. It is definitely a compassion-based field. And you need to be prepared before you get here, or it will hit you like a ton of bricks. It is one of the easiest ways to make a difference in your community, because 66% of American households own pets, according to multiple studies and statistics. That means that in Jackson, we have between 15 and 18,000 homes that own pets. If you're involved in animal welfare in this area, how else are you going to find a demographic that large that you can directly impact? You're not. So it's the easiest way in your community to make a difference, to reach out to people that may be struggling with pet ownership, to reach out to people that want to help others with pet ownership, education outreach, low cost options for, low income pet owners, things like that. It is the easiest way to make a difference in your community, but it is also one of the most emotionally taxing, because you will see a whole lot of ugly in a very short amount of time. And so you do need to be emotionally prepared for it. I think that's what I would have appreciated, that heads up in my early 20s before I face planted into this whole thing.
Well, thank you so much for letting us interview you today.
You're very welcome.
It was a pleasure. And yes, that's it.